Good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. I'm excited to talk again today about getting in the door with federal buyers. Before we get started, I just want to give you a quick tip as a way of saying thank you for showing up early and on time. That's always really helpful to letting LinkedIn push this out to other people and let them know that the training's happening and that there's a community here that they can engage with. And so my tip for you today is to really make sure you're looking at your target agency. They put out different documents, but the one I like is called the Advanced Planning Briefing to Industry, or Brief to Industry. APBI is what it stands for, or it's the reverse, right? That document is huge. Go find the APBI, Advanced Planning Brief to Industry, for your target agency. Today, I just put one out, and this one was for the Department of Veterans Affairs for just their technology acquisition center, right? TAC. And this is the main place at the headquarter level for DoD, which has 400,000 users or employees. They put out a APBI earlier this year, and in it is just so much golden information. In there, you can find upcoming opportunities through the end of FY 2023, major opportunities coming out in the first quarter of 2024. You can see insight from key technology leaders like the CISO or the CIO or various product or deputy CIOs for major initiatives within the VA's technology side of the house. And you can find this for construction. You can find this for the manufacturing or the services side on various levels. But go find the APBIs that get put out by these agencies you're trying to get into. They will tell you how to do business. In this deck that I just put out today, they were saying, here's what we're looking for from industry. Here's what we need. Well, what if that aligns to what you sell? It sure will make a sales call much easier. So that's my tip for saying thank you. As a way to say thank you for showing up early and on time, just go check out the APBIs for your target agency. All right, let's get diving into the training. I'm going to get my technology squared away here, share my screen, and we're off to the races. Okay, so let's talk about what 90% of small businesses miss when they're trying to reach federal buyers. And I'll give you the spoiler alert, right? What we miss is that most buyers you're not going to be able to reach. They're going to have to come find you. And so we're going to talk about that in a minute. But as I get into this training, and for whatever reason you decided to come to this training, whether it's live or replay, whether it's the title or you know me, one thing I just really want to drive home as you're thinking about success for your company and doing your job well, whether you own the company or you're part of it, is that there is no magic pill. I talk about this all the time, right? I'm not here to tell you a secret. I'm here to tell you a process. So there's no magic pill to success. Don't look in my training for a magic pill. An example of something I want to talk about that I think is a magic pill is trying to swing for the fences. This is a version of a magic pill, if you will. Is that sometimes we just really try to go for this big thing. So an example here that I have is going to conferences, right? We go to these conferences thinking if I go to the conference, I'm going to be able to find a bunch of people, network, and make money. But that's not how sales works. The conferences are great for learning things, maybe discovering new people. But if you want to make sales, identify the customer you want to sell to, the one who buys what you sell, pick up the phone and call them. It literally is that simple. And I'll show you on the next slide the 7-step process that I teach. But I also put here, stop swinging for the fences, right? And so if you don't know baseball, let me just get everybody on the same page, right? Baseball, you're standing at home plate and you got a bat and the pitcher's there and they're going to throw the ball at you and you swing at it and you try to hit the ball. When you do, you go to first base. If you hit it really far, you might go to second base. What happens is a lot of us are trying to knock the ball out of this ballpark. We're swinging for the fences, right? We're just putting all our power into it. And we're just trying to win the game in one swing. And what I would like you to sit there and keep in mind is you just want to get on base. When you hit the ball, your goal is just to get to first base. If you get to first base enough times, you keep pushing that person who's on first base to second base and second base to third base, et cetera, around the diamond there, right? And so as they're going around, once you have the bases loaded, it's pretty easy to score. An example of the bases being loaded is getting a relationship, getting in the door and having the right meetings, having RFIs that you're responding to that are in your sweet spot. So don't swing for the fences. Don't try to find some magic solution or magic pill to your success. Success is just about learning skills, getting good at those skills, and then exercising them over and over again. So today we're going to be driving down on this idea of reaching federal buyers, the skill around that, and how do you get on base, right? And more importantly, how do you just get invited to first base instead of even have to swing at a 90-mile-an-hour ball? So the first thing I want to cover down is just what some of the challenges are that you might be facing as it relates to reaching federal buyers. And then I want to explain to you the difference between passive and active marketing and sales. Marketing is just a part of sales to me. Its only existence is sales. It's kind of like music. Without music, dancing will look kind of silly, right? So music exists so we can dance. I guess there might be other reasons. And then I'm going to wrap up with these must-complete marketing tasks. And we're here at the end of the fiscal year. There is still time for you to be potentially getting contracts if you've got the right things in place. You got a contract vehicle, especially if you're an 8A firm, you should be able to expect to still maybe get something at the end of the year. If you're newer to government contracting, please don't think you're going to get a contract at the end of the year. But these are still things that you should get done in the next couple of weeks, right? Couple of months here. But literally, you could do it in the next couple of hours. And that's what I'm going to talk about. Number 3 is these marketing tasks that I really want you to complete. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When you follow a process A to Z, you're going to have repeatable, predictable results. That's what I show here in the 7-step process that I teach, is that when you follow this kind of process, you're going to have success. What we're going to talk about today really is around targeting and outreach. These are the 2 steps in the 7-step process that lead to relationships. But you need to be able to get invited into the meeting, whether you call somebody and get invited in or they find you and get invited in. That's what we're going to cover down today, is really fitting into the targeting and outreach portion of the 7-step process. If you haven't done so already, do me a favor, let buyers know who you are. They show up to these trainings. Let your fellow government contractors know who you are. Let the rest of us know who you are. Put your company name and your core competency into the chat. Your core competency, use 2 or 3 words that just describe what your company does. Make it easy for us to know your company name and know what you sell. Make it an easy couple of words that I can remember and go, oh, workforce development, data analytics, things like that, right? And the last thing is make sure you engage in the community. I'm enabling you to sit there and meet all sorts of other people. We have on average 60 to 100 people live every single day. And then we have a whole bunch of people come after the fact and watch it. And they'll see the commenting in the threads, right? This is your network. This is your chance to network. Ironically, this is part of that passive and active marketing. I'm not weaving it into my training today, but you've got the opportunity just by engaging with people in the chat. So make sure you do that. Okay, so let's talk first about the challenge of reaching federal buyers. I just wanted to throw out some challenges that I see that you might be running into. And the first 2 is perception. It's around perception that you might have. If you don't know this, there are hundreds of thousands of federal buyers. I put a chart here, and this one, it comes from a bigger training that I did on knowing the federal acquisition world, the people who buy. But down here, it says 157,000. This is an older chart from 2018. But by 2021, that number was 185,000. And I think it's closer to 190,000 now. 190,000 people working for the federal government who are, just DOD. That's only DOD. Working for Department of Defense, whose job is in the acquisition workforce, right? This doesn't count the program office people and all these other people who are supporting acquisitions, whether it's, financing or actually doing the work, et cetera. These are the buyers, the acquisition personnel, almost 200,000 in Department of Defense alone. Imagine what that's like with the Department of Veterans Affairs or Homeland Security or HHS, right? Hundreds of thousands of federal buyers. That's a massive pool of people you're going to be trying to reach to sell to. Obviously, not all of the 100,000 are your buyers, the same way all of the 700 billion that gets contracted out is not your contract dollars. But that's still a massive portion. Next one is that I put here is hundreds of thousands of competimates. If you haven't heard that term before, we call ourselves competimates, right? Some days we're competing and some days we're teaming, so we're teammates. So competimates. But there's hundreds of thousands of competimates out there, and not just companies, but people in those companies. There's 300,000 companies or so registered in SAM right now. 8A firms, for example, there's 6,277 8A firms as of today. And so in those companies, there's 2-3 people. And when you think about including the largest in there, you've got this massive pool of people, maybe 1 million people that are out there that are potential competitors. Large businesses have this same kind of acquisition workforce or buyers. I was talking with somebody at Boeing, and she was saying that they have 14,000 buyers internally that they support. That means these people are doing buying on behalf of Boeing internally or Boeing's customers, but they're the ones looking for suppliers like you. And so I want you to really just understand the vastness of the buyer pool. And let's put competimates for the moment as a buyer, because if you're going to sub under them, they're buying your services, right? So this buyer pool is well over 1 million people out there. You could never reach that. That's totally fine. I'm going to talk to you about how you can begin to potentially be found by those people. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But the other thing that challenges with reaching out to federal buyers is, if you're the business owner, you totally know what I'm saying, is that you got too many things on your shoulder, too many plates spinning, whatever. You're responsible for business development. You're responsible for then maybe writing the proposal and doing that kind of activity in the solution. And oh, by the way, you're billable either some or all of your time. And you got to run the company. And if you've got any employees, now you got HR to deal with and making sure your staff is taken care of. So you have all these things as a business owner while also trying to do business development. That's a challenge that's before you. And if you're a business developer in a small business, you have a similar type challenge, right? You only have 8 hours in any given day. What can you get done in that day? It's so much in there. And if you start actually getting some traction and building relationships, et cetera, well, those relationships take time. When you're chasing opportunities, the capture takes time. When you're researching agencies, it's all taking time. And it's all kind of taking away from the amount of time you have to reach federal buyers. And so, yes, you will still proactively reach out to buyers, but you only have so much time in any given day. How do you get more federal buyers and competitors to find you? That's what we're going to talk about. So this leads into, I said proactive, right? And think of it this way, passive versus active marketing. This is what I want to talk to you about. And marketing to me is just sales, right? It's the beginning of sales. If you've never heard me talk about the sales life cycle for the federal market, it basically is business development, capture, and proposal writing. Those three things are sales. And business development, to me, that's what marketing is, the federal side. I always love it when people try to put a marketing department all by itself. It's like, no. Your only reason for existing is business development, which is understanding an agency, building strategic relationships, and identifying opportunities. Any marketing activity you're doing needs to go to one of those three goals as you move forward, right? And so marketing and sales, it's all fits together in the same world for me of business development, capture, and proposal. So let's talk about what active marketing is. And if this is your first time here, no, I did not go to Penn State. I married into Penn State, alumni for life, whether I want it or not. I love Penn State. Anyways, so let's talk about active marketing, right? So active marketing, and what I mean here is, what can you physically do, right? You can pick up the phone and call people, right? Do so many calls a day trying to reach new people. It's email outreach. I don't mean spamming, right? So if you're going to send an email, you got to personalize that email. It doesn't take you forever, but let's say it takes 2 to 5 minutes per email. If you do it correctly, then it starts adding up, right? You've got vendor outreach sessions. Some of these events you might be able to go to try to do some active business development and marketing out there, active sales. So going to agency vendor outreach sessions or matchmaking events, et cetera. There's industry days. I talked about the APBI early on, the advanced planning briefing to industry or brief to industry. That's a version of an industry day. That's for the entire kind of the, in this case, the Technical Acquisition Center, but for the entire agency usually is an APBI. But you could go to those and you can engage with teammates, you can engage with the customer. And like I said, you can go to conferences and sometimes you're at a conference. Well, these type of things, they take time, right? These are active marketing tasks that you will do, active sales. When you do these, you have a capacity of 8 hours a day. Let's just use a normal 40-hour work week, right? But you have a capacity of 80 hours. You've got travel time or any of this other activity you're doing. Like I said, with emails, you got preparation and send time. You only have so many hours in the day to be able to do active marketing. Plus the fact that you got all the other activities that I said. I use this example right here in the middle that active marketing, active sales has a limit. Imagine you're doing 25 calls a day. And by the way, if you're feeling generous in the chat, tell me right now how many calls, new people calls, not to your friends, but how many people do you call new people every given day? What's that number? Is it one person? Is it 5 people? Is it 25 people? If you have to, feel free to switch it over to weekly, but let us know in the chat. I'd be really curious. But imagine if you called 25 people a day. That's a reasonable number if you sat down for 1 hour. If you sat down for 1 hour and called 25 people, you could reach 25 people. At least half of them won't answer, so you'll leave a voicemail. Even if you get some people, you're not having meetings, you're trying to schedule a meeting. And so that call will last 2 or 3 minutes, and then you're off. So you can call 25 people in a single day. That's why I said targeting and outreach, right, is where this fits in. So when you think about 25 calls a day, multiply that by 220 days, which is the average number of business days in a year, right? So 220 days times 25 calls a day, you could call 5,500 people a year, 5,500 new people a year. Are you doing that, right? Even if you just did that and didn't do anything else I suggest, that would be massive. Imagine the number of relationships you would be able to establish in agencies and in teammates and companies, right? You would be able to find your success in there if you just picked up the phone and called. But a lot of times we get distracted, right? We're moving on to some other stuff and we just don't get to the active calls. And by the way, I put over here this red box just saying, even if you did 5,500, which is just spectacular, you're still only touching a drop in the bucket of the hundreds of thousands of buyers and the hundreds of thousands of competitors that are out there, right? So we want to figure out a way to, how do we reach these people we never knew about or we never got to call? How do we engage with them? And that's where passive marketing comes in, right? And again, none of this is rocket science. Passive marketing to me is where they're knocking on your door because they discovered you. It's where they're calling you, right? They're reaching out to you and saying, and I get that sometimes even myself, people will reach out and call because they've seen a video or they've seen something I did. That's what passive marketing is, right? I put these videos out, I put information out, and people reach out and say, hey, Neil, I like what you did. Could we talk? Can we do something? I want that exact same thing for you. Everything that I do, you don't have to do it at my volume, but you definitely want to make it easy for people to find you, see you as an expert, find you and call you, right? And so that's one way. And then if they're reaching out to you, passive marketing literally is inviting you to bid or join a team. I don't know if I've got somebody in our team today. She said it was okay for me to say her name, but Nina, who's in our community, right? She told me when we first met that she had that same thing. She got reached out to by her business opportunity specialist. She's an 8A firm because somebody called the district office. Actually, I don't even know if it was a business opportunity specialist, but some agency called her district office of the SBA and they knew who she was. And they said, oh yeah, I know them. Let me make the introduction, right? And that's what passive marketing is. Making it easy for people to be able to know, like, and trust you, right? To reach you. I describe visibility, which is what we're really talking about when we say passive marketing. I describe visibility as being findable and attractive. Findable is when they have a need for something that you sell, elevator services, painting, etc. They have a need for it and they go looking for companies that could help them. Your company needs to come up in the results. And attractive means when they're looking for painting or elevator services, you scream that you're the expert, your company is the expert around that service. So that's the difference between passive and active marketing and sales. I want to drive home on the least secreted tips out there. These are the most fundamental. This is why I started my presentation when I said there is no magic bullet, no magic pill, whatever, right? Silver bullet. There's no secret out there. There's no hack or any of this stuff. I sometimes are on the internet and I see people telling me the hack to losing weight. No, the hack to losing weight is for me to stop eating these. If I stop eating these, I will lose weight. If I keep eating these, there's a good chance I won't, right? And so there's no secret. There's no hack to me getting in shape. It's just process, right? And so here I'm talking about the same thing. I'm giving you 4 examples that you need to do today if you want to be found by buyers and teammates, right? And for them to find you on their own schedule. It just sits out there, okay? So let's talk about the dynamic small business search. You've probably heard of this before. When you register to sell it to the government, you register in SAM, and there's a complimentary database from Small Business Administration, DSBS. The dynamic small business search is the #1 market research tool used by the federal government. When the federal government goes looking for a company like yours, the first place they go is DSBS when they're looking at tools. It's the only tool that's mentioned in the FAR. right? The Federal Acquisition Regulation that gives them guidance on how they need to research to make sure no small could do the work. Government has to go looking for you. Well, you need to make it easy for them to find you. And so the first tip I want you to do is go in there and make sure that your top words are there. Go to dsbs.sba.gov. First thing you do is just go down and look for the keywords and type in your keywords, the 2 or 3 keywords, do them one at a time. But if you want to be found for cybersecurity or elevator, type it in, see where you are in the results. Are you even in the results? I know so many companies who aren't even coming up in the results, but I know they're doing millions of dollars of business. They could be doing so much more if buyers could find them, because they don't have the time to knock on the buyer's doors and tell them everything. I have here an example of Nintex. I have a customer, they're doing Microsoft SharePoint services, et cetera. And we're given some guidance on DSBS. And when you go in, Nintex is a big word around what they do. When you type it now, their company comes up. They are one of only 4 companies out of 300,000 companies that come up for it. And this is something that if it came up and they made a sale, they could make $20,000, $30,000 minimum profit in about an hour, right? So literally that's a software product, right? And that's an unusual thing. But what's not unusual is that you should be able to get found by what you sell. Do you do zero trust architecture, cybersecurity type work? Do you do workforce development? Well, what other words are around workforce development? Think about that. So go to DSBS and don't just update it, but go actually search DSBS in the way that a buyer would search for your company and see if your company comes up in the results. And then when you find your company, go down to the bottom. Whether you're the owner or somebody in the company, it doesn't matter. Go to dsbs.sba.gov. Go to the bottom of your company's profile. All you have to do is type the company name or the cage code or the UEI, type it in. When the results come back for your company, look at the very bottom. Are your experiences listed? I'm working with a customer who's got like 30 experiences and they're not in there. They're an 8A firm. They're doing well. They're well respected. But when somebody comes to the DSBS profile and they're just looking for companies like this customer, they won't find them. I mean, they'll find them and they'll ignore them because they'll come down and go, they're not really doing stuff. Let me go find somebody who's got experience. They're not going to go over to FPDS. They're not going to go over to CPARS. They don't have to. DSBS tells them whether you do what they are looking for and whether you've been paid for it. It's your job to update DSBS to make sure that information is referenced. And yes, I would love for the SBA and GSA to just integrate it all. And the last one is, if you don't know this, the capability statement can be in DSBS. My biggest concern is 8A firms. Your capability statements are automatically up there. For the rest of us, we have to go in and put a link in there to our capability statement. But for you, they took one that they got a long time ago. So for many of the 8A firms that I work with, it was an old 8A or old capability statement. So just go in there and make sure the keywords are good. Your experience is at the bottom. If you have any commercial, state, and local, that's all fine too. Put it in there. And then capability statement, make sure you upload it. That way, when a buyer comes to DSBS, they can find you and they can find you attractive enough to say, hey, let's get on a call. Let me invite them to bid. Let me learn more about their company. So when you fill out DSBS, it is basically a glorified supplier portal, right? The supplier portal that rules all supplier portals. That information, when filled out correctly, can then be used 100 times. And so right here are the supplier portals. Second thing I put in. We have a free directory. Just download it off our website, www.govconchamber.com. Somebody put a link. Oh, actually, you should see the link right on my picture here. But when you go to our website, you download this directory. In the directory are over 100 supplier portals. These are agency portals and large prime contractor portals. These are where people go to look even before DSBS sometimes, right? So an example is HHS has a directory of small businesses. If you go in there, recently I did some training and it's like 20% of the 8As or hub zones or women-owned small businesses, 20% that exist are in DSBS are in HHS's small business directory, which is created and maintained for their buyers. And so if an HHS CDC buyer is looking for somebody, before they even go to DSBS and leave HHS, they go to their own internal supplier portal and they say, hey, let me find a woman-owned small business, an 8A small business, and they look. Take 2 seconds, go over there, register. It's not literally 2 seconds, but certainly 15 minutes or less. But get yourself in there. You don't have to do anything special. All you have to do is register, and you can use the information that you already put into DSBS, just fill it into the fields. And you'll instantly increase your visibility, right? This is the passive marketing. Now you're where HHS is looking. Now imagine that 100 times other. If Boeing or Booz Allen are looking for people, if you put your information into a supplier portal, will you get a contract? No. Will you get contacted? Maybe not. But one thing's for sure, if you don't put it in there, you will not get contacted, right? And so get it in there. Make it easy for your buyers and your competitors to find you. Be where they're looking, not where you want them to look. The third one is LinkedIn personal profile, right? You have a LinkedIn personal profile and company page. The only reason for a company page is so you can have your logo on your LinkedIn personal page. We can argue that another time, but the value in LinkedIn is your personal profile. People buy from people. And so on LinkedIn, I don't care. I had somebody today, I rejected their connection request because they were sending me a personal profile that was a company. So they use the personal profile for a company. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I connect with people. I don't connect with companies. I don't mind connecting with 100 people from the same company, but people. And so in your personal profile, I want you to go in there and make sure that you have yourself visible to the buyers, because people search for folks over there. Or if they find out about you, they go check you out, right? We're always making introductions. 2 weeks ago or 2 Fridays ago, I think it was 2 Fridays ago, I did a whole training on LinkedIn personal profile. Go watch that training. Maybe somebody will be kind enough to drop it in the link, but go watch that training and you'll see me give you guidance on how to update your personal profile. If you're an 8A, how to use LinkedIn to make sure you're getting found as an 8A. Like if somebody types in, I'm looking for 8A and risk management framework or something, you can get found. I'm looking for an 8A that does paving, right? Put it in there. Be engaged in there as well. That's a whole separate conversation. But that's a place where people look, right? It's a passive marketing asset. That's why I'm telling you, if you have that data correct, if you have your capability statement uploaded into LinkedIn, then it makes it easy for people to discover you, to find you, and then decide to reach out to you and have a conversation. The last tip I want to give you that you should get done immediately, and you should be doing this even while I'm talking maybe, is look at your website. Do you have your cage code, your UEI, and a capability statement on there and easy to get? Your UEI and cage code should be in the footer or header on every single page. Your capability statement, frankly, I think it should be the same thing. Every single page in the footer, it should say the word capability statement. Or if you've got an about menu, in that about menu, it should say leadership, about us, and then capability statement, right? Make it very easy for us to find your cage, your UEI, and your capability statement, because that's what makes us want to continue learning more about your company. Takes 2 seconds to get that done. Make sure when you put your capability statement up there that you don't request a name, an email, anything. Just give us immediate access to your capability statement. You want everybody to have that. If you could print 1 million copies and drop it from an airplane, that's a good idea. It's not a good idea environmentally, but marketing, it's a great idea. Okay, so let's wrap up here on what you should remember from today's training, right? The first thing is there's just way too many people to call, way too many buyers. And so you need to have a passive marketing strategy in place. It begins with those 3 things that I just mentioned, or a few tips that I just mentioned, but get out there, make sure you're where the buyers are going to look. When you put your company's information where the buyers look, now you're executing on a passive marketing strategy. Now you're increasing the likelihood that you're going to get found. The task I have for you is what I just said about your website. Go look at your website right now and say and see if your cage code, UEI, and capability statement are on there. If they're not, get it done. And then take a look at a couple of those other steps that I did. Hey, if you get value from today's training, we'll definitely say thanks into the chat, because we got a whole team that just works on this, especially the people you see right now in chat. But also consider becoming a sustaining member, right? Sustaining members are the ones who are joining us and helping us continue to make this training possible to everybody. You get a lot of value out of being a sustaining member, but the purpose of the sustaining membership is for the community to keep making this possible. And so we'd love your support. And the last thing is, if you're interested in working with me at the next level, we have something called a BD Accelerator Workshop. We're wrapping this up at the end of this year, this calendar year. And so we're taking like 3-4 max customers through the end of the year. So as we move forward, when we go into 2024, we're going to have a whole nother initiative. But if you're interested in us helping accelerate you down this path of business development, reach out. Your company needs to be doing 1-2 million minimum to move forward. We really want to be able to take a company that's got some traction and get you to the next level. Remember, for all of us, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.